Okay, if you watched the last video, it was about creating your own XML HTTP post request to send information to your server from your client. I'm going to build off that this time, and I'm going to develop a web app that's capable of sending information from multiple connected clients back to each client. So for example, if say three people were looking at the same site, any information that they sent back to the server would get broadcast out to all three of them. So that would be a kind of a rudimentary example of something like a chat room app or some such thing. I'll show you how that's done. It's going to be very basic, at least this one is, and then we'll obviously, as time goes on, we'll improve upon things. So I'm going to start off where I left off last time. I have this app. If you haven't seen the last video, then you definitely need to go back and watch it. It's called XMLHttpRequest. And in that video, I demonstrated how to create a server that could receive the request that you sent from your client. I have that project open right now. You're looking at my JavaScript code to send the request. And I think actually you probably have it a little, if you go back and look at your work, it probably looks like this. And so I'll start from there. And then I've got my index.html file and my server file right here. All right, and I'm just going to run it to refamiliarize you with what it does. Hopefully I can find it. Let me give you a bigger terminal window so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Let's go. There you go. Giant font terminal. Okay. And I think it's called Ajax example. Here we go. Yeah. There we are. And I'm just going to run the server file right there. Okay. And then in my browser, I'm going to go to localhost 5000. And I'm just going to send a simple post request. We're going to say hello. Actually, I think my server is expecting to get numbers. Let's see what happens if I put hello. Send. All right, so it printed hello here. And I think the client's supposed to get something back. Remembering what I had last time. Let's see. Network. And let's try that again. Hello. There it is. And we'll look at the response. It says nan, or not a number, because yeah, I sent it hello. So my server is configured, the way I have it right now is configured to receive numbers. It expects to get a number. So if I were to send it 4, for example, and take the response, it will send back 8. And the reason for that, if you remember, is that in my server code, what I'm doing is I'm taking the incoming information, which I guess is coming in under the .age property, so request.body and then .age, and I'm logging that down here. You could see 4, and then I'm multiplying it by 2, and I'm just res.sending that back to the client, response.send back to the client, and the client's getting it in here. Right now I have to go over here to the network tab and look at the request to actually see what I've gotten back. It'd be really nice if this could be, well, it is printing it here, but you're probably wondering why that is. So here, let me just save a couple of things. I may not have saved everything, so let's go back. All right, so let me refresh the page, and we'll go back. This time we'll put in 3, and we'll hit send, and awesome, just like I wanted. Okay, I got 6 back right here. Nothing appeared here. Okay, the reason you saw something here before is because I was playing with an idea, and I'm going to show you how I did it first. So that's where it was when the video ended last time, and you know, client-side code, server-side code to make this happen. The key is in the server. You have this thing here called a root. It's a post, or really a route would be a better way to pronounce it, so that you don't confuse that word with like the root of a drive, the root directory or something like that. So R-O-U-T-E. So you have a post route named num and a callback function which takes the incoming request, grabs its body, looks for the .age property of it, and then you do work with that. The only reason that this really does work is because the client is configured to send something that has a key age in it. So if we go to the client code that's here, the JavaScript, you can see I created this little JSON package here where age is the key and numberbox.value is the value. And then, I just put in another example of nonsense that I'm not really using. And I mentioned that you could put 1,000 things inside this array. You could keep going and say, address, colon, 27 Foxwoods Road, or some such thing. And that's perfectly acceptable on the server side as long as you're asking for something that's there, .age, then it's going to work. Okay, so that's where we are. So first thing I want to show you is how to get the information when you get the information back from the server. In other words, when the server sends back right here, res.send age times 2, I want to actually display it in the client. I want it to show up here in the actual web page itself. I'm not going to go over here to my network tab and hit my network exchange and my response body all the time. I need to show it on the page. Of course, right? Of course. So how do we do that? The server doesn't have to change at all. I'm just going to write a little bit of code in the client. So there's a couple ways you can do it. One, the first option is in your HTML, you can actually prepare an element that's ready to receive the incoming information, but leave it blank for the time being. So, you could come over here and make, say, a paragraph tag and give it an ID. ID equals para. And then not put anything in it, just blank paragraph. And then when the request comes back from the server here, and I'll show you how to listen for that inside this function here, you could populate that paragraph with information. That's one thing you can do if you want to. Of course, you'd have to get a reference to that up here. You'd have to actually gain a reference to that paragraph with that ID para up here at the top of your script. So certainly that's possible. I'm not going to do that just to be a little more interesting. I think I'm going to create the element on the JavaScript element on the fly, but I want to stress that you don't have to do it that way. All right, so first most important thing is when you create one of these XMLHttp requests in your JavaScript, you can actually listen for the completion of that request. Meaning, that's what happens when the server responds. So the way you do that is you attach an event listener to this XMLHttp object. So you say xhr.add event listener. And you listen for a load event. That's what happens when the server has responded back to you, to the browser, a load event. And then you name the function that you want to have to handle the event. In other words, what do you want to do when you get the response from the server? And you can give that function a name. You can say handle response, and then you can come down here and you can say function handle response, and then you can put in your code to do what you want to do. But nobody really does that commonly. Instead, what's far more common is to just use the anonymous function technique like this, and put your function right in here to do what it is that you want to do. We'll go like that. All right, so this is a relatively new way of doing it. There are, if you look in the literature and the documentation online, you'll find that there are several different ways to listen for the return of a server, the response back from a server. This is a relatively new way to do it. It's simple and it's streamlined and it will work. There are more sophisticated things that you can listen for along the way. And I think for the time being, this is sufficient. This will work, right? So that's what just how we're going to do it. But I just want to point that out in case you go looking at documentation. Like there seems to be other ways to do this. And the answer, you're correct if you notice that. Okay. All right. So what do we want to do when we get the response back from the server? All right. So the first thing I can do is I can just alert, right? And what I would want to alert is this dot response text, like that. And this dot response text is somewhat automatic in that this is bound to the event itself. The event is a server responding. And so this is that event. And response text is already predefined as what the server replied with. In other words, the response text is literally what was sent here. To differentiate that from the response headers. If you wanted to see the headers that came back, that would be something very different. But I want to see the actual text of the body of what the server sent, and so it's accessed that way. All right, let's see what this does. I should not have to restart my server. I just refresh the page, and I'll put in a 3, and I'll hit send, and I notice now I have an alert, and it says 6. Okay, cool. I'm getting somewhere. I can not have to look at my console, but I can do much better than the alert. So instead of that, I'm going to go ahead and just create an element on the page and just sort of stick the content from the server right into that element. Okay, so the way you do that is there's a function called document.createElement, and you simply put in here what element you want to create. So I'm going to do a paragraph, and I'm actually going to assign that a variable so I have a reference to it. So I'll say var para equals that. Okay, then I'll say para.inner HTML equals, and then here is where I'll put this dot response text. Remember that? Okay, so that will set the actual content, the text content of this object, this paragraph object, to be whatever's come back from the server. And then I'm going to append the paragraph to the body. So body.append child, because the new paragraph will be a child of the body. Append child para, like so. Okay, so 3-step process. First you create the element, then you set the response text to, or the inner HTML to the response text, then you append the child. Now, there are other ways to do this. The order of these last two I don't think matters. You can swap those. You can also create a text node and assign that to be a child of the paragraph. So there are different ways to do it, and there are better ways. But for the time being, this will totally suffice. So refreshing the page, let's put in 6, let's hit send, and lo and behold, it doesn't work. All right, why not? Let's see, let's go back to the console. Unquote reference body is not defined. Right, of course not. So I may have to do document.body. Let's see if that works. Put in a 6, go, there it is. Okay, so now I'm adding right to the page. Now I can keep on putting these in, and so right away you should notice one problem is that every time I add every time I make a new request, it just kind of appends to the page. That's what append means. So it's creating a new paragraph and attaching it to the end of the DOM, the document object model, the DOM. It's attaching it or appending it every single time I do a request. So that may not be exactly what I want, okay? But it's functional. So what I probably need to do, if you just want one element that just keeps on changing what's in it, you're going to have to take a look and get rid of, you're going to have to remove any object, any paragraph on the page first before you append another one. Now, another way around this is to go back to what I suggested in the first place. And I just want to show you a couple different options. And back up here to create a paragraph tag, right? So let's do that right now. So PID equals para, right? We're going to leave it empty like that. And then here at the top of the JavaScript, I'm simply going to say var para equals document dot query selector. There we go. And in quotes, I'm going to put hashtag para, right? Because that was the name of it. And then I don't need to create the element anymore, right? Because the element is already there. And that way I won't be recreating the element each and every single time I send the post request. So now you should see it just kind of replace. So let's see. Good. We'll put in 2. Now I have an error. Let's see. Cannot set property inner HTML of null. Okay, so right off the bat, that means that this is null. means this does not exist. So the reason, this must have failed right here. So this is null. Parent, I didn't get the reference that I wanted. And the reason is why? Let's see. Maybe I didn't save this. Let's see. So yeah, there it is. So that was just again, I mentioned that in previous videos, a simple error sometimes is just forgetting to save your changes. All right, so Command S or Control S, I guess, on a Windows machine, quickly all the time, just constantly saving my work. And there it is, 8. Now let me put some other things in here. We'll put a 4. We'll put a 2, 3. Now it's 6. Put a 2, 4. Okay, 7, 14, so on and so forth. So totally works. A little better than before. You probably would say you like this better. I'm getting the response showing on the page, and it's always overriding the previous response. Cool. Okay, now what can we do with this? So, so that's kind of a necessary first step to appreciate how you're going to go back and show things that other people have sent to the server. So I'm going to go over my server code right here, and let's change a couple of things. Let's see. Let's go to my script.js file. Actually, we'll stay here for just a second, and we don't need all this junk now that we're kind of sending here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say message. I'm going to redo my JSON, and I'm going to say message is whatever's in the number box.value. And maybe I should change a few things here to be consistent. Not that it really matters, but here I could call this a message box. So change line 7 to message box. So then I change this here to message box, right? And I don't need the rest of this content. That was just there to prove a point. All right, so we'll simplify that. So I'm not going to plan on sending numbers anymore. Instead, I'm going to send messages. So let's do that and make that clearer for anybody that's working with this. All right, so maybe I want to change this to up here, this ID. So instead of, we'll just change it to mess right there. And of course, that means I need to go back to my HTML and where I had an ID, which is, where was it? Wait for it, right here. Num, I'm going to change that to mess right there. So I haven't really done anything except change some syntax to be a little clearer. All right, everything should still totally work. Let's see, refresh the page. 7, not a number. Well, yeah, because, let's see, why is that not a number? I know why that's not a number. And oh yeah, look down here at the server, it's undefined, right? Now let's think about why that is. That's because the server, look at what the server is expecting to get, right? It's looking for that, and you don't have that anymore. You don't have in your JSON a .age property. Instead, at this point, all you have is message, and then you're sending whatever's in the message box. So you're actually sending over the message, but you're not extracting it properly here. Okay, so we're going to have to change that to message to make this work. Not that. Okay. All right, now I have to restart the server. Great. Refresh the page, throw in the number 7, send. I get 14 back. Right? It's still doing math on the server side, right? But if I were to send in hello, that's going to cause a problem. It's not a number. I still got it, but I tried to do math with it. And what is that? 2 times hello. Is it hello, hello? In this context, I guess not. All right, so we're not going to do that anymore. Okay, instead, here's what we're going to do. We're going to come up to the top of the server's, or not the top, but somewhere up here. And I'm going to create an empty array. And I'm just going to say var messages, like that. And we're going to make it an empty array. And that's how you do that. Just like that. And every time a post comes in, app.post, I'm going to take this thing here, request.body.message, and I'm going to shove it into that array, right? And we'll talk about what to send back in a minute. So let's do that right here. And actually, instead of having this, I should probably change that too. to message. So message equals request.body.message. Great. And since that doesn't, you don't want to throw undefined, I'm going to do the same thing there. Okay, so we'll log it to the console. And actually, we won't. First, we'll do this. We'll say, let's add it to the array. So messages, that's the name of the array. That's empty. That's up here. And then I'm going to take the incoming message and add it to that. Now, this is JavaScript. So I think in JavaScript, to add something to the end of an array is .push, which is a strange syntax. A lot of programming languages, you would say .add to shove something into the backside of the array. I believe it's .push in JavaScript. So messages.push, push what? Message. Like that. And if this is making you crazy with all the messages, you know, request.body.message, keep in mind you could just take this thing right here and put it right there. You don't need that line of code, right? That doesn't do anything in particular for you. But I like it, so I'm going to leave it. Okay? All right, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to log the messages. So that means I'm logging the entire array, which, again, it starts out empty, and then every time somebody pushes something to it, every time the client sends a message, it's going to pack that into the end of the array. And I should probably send something back for the time being. So I think what I'll do is I'll actually send back, for now, the entire array. Now that may not go well initially. So let's just try to send back messages, and we'll see what happens right off the bat. All right, let's watch it. So we'll quit the server, run the server, refresh the page, and watch down here now. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to type hello and hit send. Okay, interesting. Okay, this says hello. And it says hello here. All right, now let's put in a second message. Let's say, what time is it? Question mark. Ready? Send. Notice the array has grown on the server side, and the server has sent its array to the client. All right, let's try a third message. It is 10:30. Let's send that. Okay, and I've got that as well. Okay, it is 10:30. So that array is going to grow and grow and grow and grow. One thing to keep in mind is that if you restart the server, like I just did, that data is gone. So that content, those messages do not persist each time you restart the server, obviously, because this gets reinitialized. Here's my server code, and that's going to reinitialize to be an empty array. So there's no persistence here, meaning that from run to run of the server, you lose all the messages that you've had. If you want your data to last indefinitely, then you need some kind of storage, some place that you can save these messages permanently. And that could be in just a simple flat file or a text file that we created that the server could read. Or, more properly, it would be in something known as a database that would be running alongside the server. And the server would both save information to the database and then get information or query the database for information. That's the way we say it. And populate its array with messages every time it starts with past messages. We're not doing that, not yet. Okay, so this kind of very, very rudimentary, simple example, all it does is it sends back what has been saved in this array for that session. So if I go back and actually, I don't think the server's even running. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so if I go back and refresh, there's nothing there. I say foo and hit send. I get foo. I add bar and send. It says foo bar, and so on and so forth. Okay, now the interesting thing about this right off the bat is there's no specification in the server code for which client gets to have its incoming message put into that array. So technically all connected clients get to shove a message into that array, and then all clients get to have the whole array back when they send another message. Okay, here, I'll show you what I mean. So what I'm going to do right now is pretend that I'm on another computer. And I'm just going to do that by opening up a whole other window. And now in Chrome, these are two completely different processes, right? Different windows, even different tabs are completely different processes. So this is doing a decent job of simulating being on a different computer. I don't need the IP address of my computer because obviously I'm still on my computer, so I can still access via localhost, right? So we can go like that. Now, over here, I'm going to type in, so think of me as now a second person who's looking at the same web app. So now I'm going to type in ba, and we'll hit send. Watch what happens. Look at that, right? The second person got the whole history of everything that has been pushed into that array by the first person. And now first person over here is going to put in bat. Watch what happens. That person gets bat back, but they also got ba from the other person, right? This person is going to come over here and is going to type in wibble, bat wibble. This person puts in wobble and gets wibble wobble, right? So in a way, we're chatting. These two clients are communicating with each other via this server that's collecting all their messages in this one big array. Now there are some problems with this, right? It's far from efficient, and if you actually had to use a chat room this way, you wouldn't, right? You're probably already thinking, well, wait a minute. First off, one of the major problem, I already mentioned one, right? It doesn't save any of the information when you quit the server and restart. That's one problem. And we know how to solve that in concept, okay? Got to save it. Got to save the data to some type of database. That's a complicated process, believe it or not, for another day. But a second glaring problem, and I hope you have already picked up on this and you're saying, wait, that's not how it should work, right? The second major problem is that when I type something in this window on this client, so wobble, and I send it, yeah, sure, that client gets it and gets the last message sent by this client, but this client doesn't get it. This client doesn't get the push, right? And that's a concept I've mentioned in a previous video, this idea of push notifications. The idea that the server should be able to initiate a response to the client, this client, even though this client hasn't sent a request. This client won't know what this client added until it sends another request. It's got to do something to interact with the server for the server to send back, oh yeah, there's been an update. Your buddy over here said wobble. I don't get it. All right, I don't get that message. So eventually, I don't know, I decide to put in, I'm out of words. What other kinds of nonsense words are there in programming? Let's see, nonsense programming syntax words. Let's see what we got. What do we got? Quora. I don't want to waste much time doing this. Alternatives to foo, bar, ba, bat. Let's see. Metasyntactic variables. Here we go. That's what they're called. What do we have? Foo, bar. See, y'all thought I was just making those up, but no, that's a thing. That's totally a thing. Ham, eggs. All right. What else do we have? I was hoping for better. All right, well, no sense wasting time on that. So, all right, so anyway, we're back to the problem at hand here. Is that this person really wants to know what this person over here said wobble, but they're not getting the push, all right, until they say ham. And then they can see that the other person also said wobble. This is a little bit impractical. Unfortunately, that's the way the web works. There isn't a way for the, I'm lying, sort of. There wasn't for a long time a good way for the server to initiate the communication with the client and say, hey buddy, this other dude over here, he or she just put up a message, here it is. All right, now there have been protocols for that in existence for a long time. The push protocol has been in existence for a long time. It's been used for mobile applications and text, for example. But that protocol, a good one, did not exist for HTTP, which is the main underlying protocol for web page information exchange. And so we have to come up with a way around that. Now, in recent years, a protocol called WebSockets has evolved that does allow for this to happen. But in order to even understand in concept what WebSockets are, you first have to do this a few times without them to really gain any understanding and appreciation for what's going on. So if I want the client to get updates sort of automatically without having to put in its own request, there are some things that we can do. All right, and I'm debating. I'm not going to show you really in this video because I'm running low on time. So I think that's a good topic for the next video. All right, but you can think about what some options are. I give you, I'll hint. One significant possibility, and really the one I'm going to do, is we could put some type of timer in our JavaScript, our client JavaScript right here, and we could basically say every so many seconds or every so many milliseconds, you should go and ask the server if anything has been updated. You should go and basically get the server to spit back the contents of that array. So we have to initiate it from the client, right? It's kind of like the annoying, nosy, obnoxious student in a class that just keeps asking, a question over and over again, like to the teacher, like, has there been any new information? Has there been any or like, you get the picture. That's not a great example, but you get the idea. It's like if you were worried that somebody wasn't telling you important things that were happening, then one thing that you would do is you would just consistently pester them and ask them, hey, any update? Any update? Any update? Right? And eventually they would either give you an update or they would just tell you to shut up, right? But servers, will do. They don't have to get annoyed that you keep asking them. They'll just give you an update over and over again. All right, so that's probably the simplest and easiest way to understand how to go about solving this particular problem. Right? There are some other approaches to doing it, but that's one of the ones that I think that's the one I'm going to eventually do. So that's problem number 2. So problem number 1 was we couldn't store anything permanently when the server quit. We need a database or a flat file or something like that. Cool. Problem number 2 is we need a way to fix this updating so multiple clients can get information in real time or close to real time when they post to the server. All right, we've got to solve that. Great. Problem number 3, also kind of obvious, I hope. This doesn't look good, right? It's more of a layout problem. It's more of a display problem, but I could do better. This is not really the way that I want to see messages. I know I'm passing an array back to the client, and the client's just kind of just putting the array on the screen. No way, man. Right? I got to make this better. I've got to actually loop through that array and take out elements one at a time and make, I don't know, bullet point lists for them, list items or something like that. Or maybe I want to create a div and style it nicely so it looks like a little card that sits proud on the screen and it has the contents of that message in it. So that's something else to think about. Now, in order to do that, I may have to go back and reconfigure how the server sends these messages back to the client. Right now, the client is actually getting the square brackets as text. And I guess we'll cross that bridge when we have to. But I may have to actually stringify this content, JSON.stringify, similar to what I did here, and send it over as a big string, and then parse it client-side and pull it apart and make an official array out of it and iterate through it and display it on the screen. All right, so there's that issue. That's a problem in and of itself. That probably warrants a video in and of itself, because when I do that, I then have to think about how I'm going to present all the information in a meaningful chat-like way going down the page, right? And there'll be some styling and some element creation. Like I said, bare bones would be to use a bullet point list going down the page. All right, but we got to solve that problem as well. So that's problem number 3. And problem number 4, I would argue, is that there's no name or identity associated with these messages. Right now, they're just, words. Right now, I know that each person could type their name. They could say like, Fred says, and then foo. Right? We could do that, but I think we can also do better. Right? So is there a way that we can first maybe identify a particular client as being somebody, and then every time a message comes from that client, we can again identify it's that client, right? And we can sort of tag the message with some identity, and then we can display that in the comment or the thread of messages that we build down the page. So some type of identification marks or something. That's another problem to talk about. And we can talk about doing that with IP addresses so that we can identify the client based on the fact that we've seen that client before because the message came from the same IP address. Okay, so that's also a possibility. And that, I think that probably will suffice if we manage to get through all 4 of those different solutions to those 4 different problems. That'll end up covering a lot of ground, and essentially at that point you'll have a functioning chat room type of app. It's going to take a little while to get there. Okay. Before I leave you, I want to point out one final thing so you can have a little fun with this. While your server is running, if you want to try this in your own homes with people that have different computers, it will work if you're on the same network. So 2 people with browsers on different computers can actually communicate in this way. If you're the person with the computer that's running the server, then you're still going to access it this way at localhost 5000 or whatever port number you chose to put your server on, 3000, 4000, 5000, whatever it is. But somebody else that you want to have access the server that's got a different laptop in your house or maybe a desktop, well, they need to know the actual IP address of your computer in order to do that. They can't type in localhost because they're not, obviously, they're on a different computer. So to find your IP address, there are obviously different ways to do it on different platforms. On a Mac, it's easy enough. You simply go up to your wireless network settings up here, open your network preferences, and you can find your IP address usually right here. All right, now this is your local IP address on the network. So, and I'm hoping you can see this. Mine is 10.0.0.35. That is not the IP address of my house to the outside world. No, this is the actual IP address of the computer, and it's been assigned. The computer's been assigned that IP address by my wireless router. All right, and every device in my house, so every iPhone, every Android phone, every tablet, the television set, my treadmill, they all have different IP addresses that have all been decided and dished out by my router. And everyone has a unique IP address so that there's no conflict. And when I turn off my computer or leave the house, come back with my phone, there's no guarantee that it'll actually even get the same IP address when it comes back. It will get one, though, that's not the same as something else that's in the house at that moment in time. So if you're in your house and your brother, sister, mother, father, cousin, whoever, friend wants to access your computer from within your house, it's this IP address that they would use. Okay, so I'm going to copy again. It's 10.0.0.35. So I'm going to open up another window and pretend now that I'm on a completely different computer, and I want access to this server so I can join in the chat. So I'm going to type in 10.0.0.35:5000. This will also work from my own computer. I can use my own IP address from my own computer. I don't have to type in localhost. But the point is, this will work from any computer on the same network in the house. And so now I can type in I am here too and hit send. And you can see I got everything, including what I wrote. And now, again, we still don't have that here. So who are you? I now got I am here too, who are you? And then my original, or my second client, which is over here, is just going to say wobble again. And now that person gets all the content. So again, this is to show you that you can do this from multiple computers in the same house if you get that IP address. Right? So I want you to try that. Definitely try that with other people and have them go and communicate computer to computer in this way using your very rudimentary chat server. Now, if you're on a Windows machine, I don't know off the top of my head how to get your IP address. I know there's a command utility that you can run called like ipconfig. I'm not sure whether that gives you your internal IP address or it actually goes out and pings external servers and gets you the IP address of your house, which is going to be a very, very different number. Like, for example, if I went to what's my IP, I'm gonna, well, you know, I probably shouldn't do that because this is going up on YouTube public, so I'm not going to do that. But otherwise, I'm going to start getting, you know, port scans, and we're going to start trying to, yeah, to see what's open here. So, but if you did that, if you go to the web and you type in "what's my IP," you will get an IP address back, and that's your external IP address. That's how the world sees your house, let's say. All right, so you don't want to do that. So you'll figure this out. But so if you're in my class and you're watching this, which hopefully most of you are, then your goal is to basically do this and have multiple browsers open, or multiple computers talking in this manner to each other. And when you've gotten to this point, then take a little bit of time, because obviously there's a syntax that can happen. You can make errors when you're typing all of this. I realize that. But when you've gotten to that point and this all works out, then we're going to start ironing out those problems, the 4 problems that I mentioned before, and we'll make this really a much more functional type of app. We'll start with the getting the immediate updates, problem number 2. We'll start with that. That's actually the easiest one to solve, I think. And after that, I think we'll do the layout, problem number 3. And then after that, I think we'll do the identification of who sent the text. And then last, time provided, before the course ends, I hope, we'll do the database piece. Okay. Hope this was helpful. Hope it was mildly interesting and you enjoyed it. It's good stuff. All right. Good luck. Take care. Bye-bye.